Hello and welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal, and with me here today, Andrew. Introduce yourself.
So yeah, thought ya might like to come to the show.
That's a good reference you made there. Welcome to the show, Andrew. This is not the first time you've been on my channel, actually. This is your first time on the podcast, but you remember when we used to do YouTube poop tennis?
Oh yeah, that was fun. We only got up to like round 4 or something, and like I was in the middle of round 5, and I just couldn't.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we've all kind of moved on from that era, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I still do YouTube poops. It's just not as frequent anymore as I'd like.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I get that. Totally get that. Well, speaking of past that era, we're past an era of the YouTube poop. Let's move on to a different era where we talk about movies. And this is the first movie we're going to talk about. There, see, I'm known for my good transitions. Let's talk about The Wall. Pink Floyd's The Wall, to be precise.
Hell yeah, Pink Floyd, The Wall. I'm wearing my Pink Floyd t-shirt, and I have my copy of The Wall with me, vinyl. I'm prepared.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's nice. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm glad you suggested this, because I freaking love this movie a lot. And I'm glad I got this opportunity to talk about it. So give me your thoughts on The Wall to start things off. What did you think of The Wall?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think The Wall was absolutely amazing. There may be some parts where I'm like, this may be a bit too like sophisticated or artsy that for my brain to handle, but like I can excuse that because like it's a very well composed and thought out movie, and the symbolism definitely it makes sense in the director's head. It makes sense in Roger Waters' head, and I love the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a very good blend between like live action and the animation of Gerald Scarfe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. It's funny that you say like, oh, it makes sense in Roger Waters' head. It's like, yeah, this is a very like personal movie when you get down to it. I'm reminded of like the reviews I saw of it on Letterboxd and how a lot of it is just people being like, oh, it's the only movie that says we live in a society that needs to exist. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is anything but that. Like, yes, it has, obviously, yes, there are scenes that are attributed to discussing social commentary and having like allusions to stuff that goes on in general society, of course. But like to say that, you know, this is a movie that just says we live in a society, it's like, how stupid are you? Like, that is so close-minded. It really genuinely pisses me off. It's like, wow, we really do live in a society. Because it's not about society. It's a movie about the self within society, I would say.
Yeah, it's not saying we live in society. It's saying I lived in a British society.
Yeah, if anything, sure, but like it's about like, you know, it's not an outward movie. Like it's a movie you look inward in. Like it's about the self. It's about this person and their, you know, mental capacity of dealing with all this stuff. So it's just such a weird way of putting it with this movie. It's like, did you watch it? Like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be all gatekeepy, but like, my God, like, Letterboxd for crying out loud.
By the logic of those reviews, the self itself is a society.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so stupid, but whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a very vague movie. I get it, so maybe that's what people get out of it. But like, I think that's also what makes the movie so good is how vague it is. Just how brilliant that is, because it does tackle a lot of subjects. It deals with war, it deals with drug abuse, it deals with sexual abuse, it deals with so many things that just like everything it deals with, but like in a way that doesn't feel like it's tackling too much. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
it deals with a lot.
Well, the
But
original
it doesn't feel like too much.
the original wall itself is like
No, go ahead.
separated into like 4 sides, and like one side was like dedicated to one or two topics or another. So
Mhm.
like you could think of like sides being like separated into acts if you want to.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the first side is about like his dealing with school and stuff like that. That's why you get Happiest Days of Our Lives and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 being about his dealing with being in school, especially a British school post World War II, and like how abusive that was.
Yeah.
And then it transitions to his time when he's an actual musician, and his problems with the women in his life.
It's
And
always
then
the
it
stinking
turns into-
women.
Yeah, and then it turns into him dealing with becoming a fascist.
It was only
it's-
happening
it's
in
a
his
little-
mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, right, exactly. It's something that leads you down that path. Like, it's not saying like, oh, this was definitely going to happen to you, but like, you know, it's one possibility that could happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting point to bring up, and especially in a movie like this. I'm sure people would, I'm sure people would just be like, "Oh, well, this leads to fascism." Really, it's like, well, it's a possibility. Like this is what this movie's bringing up. It's like I said, it's dealing with so much that yes, it's eventually going to lead down to this.
Yeah.
Maybe, you never know. And then it just all culminates into that trial song. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
God, that trial song.
the trial scene,
Yeah, go
trial song may not be my favorite scene or song in The Wall, but goddamn if it isn't the culmination of everything that came before it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the culmination. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, because all these characters come back, obviously in very exaggerated manners. Like you got the schoolmaster, you got the wife, you got the mother, just like coming in as sort of like either defending him or not. It's like it's brilliant.
And
it's
then
a brilliant way
yeah.
of culminating the movie.
And then it just leads up into that giant asshole of a judge.
Yeah, exactly. The judge just being so brutal towards Pink, essentially, just being like, "I have never seen before someone more deserving the highest penalty of law," or however the line goes. It's
And
just
he's
like,
a literal,
you're the worst.
He's a literal asshole.
Yeah, exactly. That too. He's a literal asshole. Leading to the line, it makes me want to defecate.
Go on, judge, shit on him.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god, it's just I'm going to be saying a lot in this episode when describing this movie. It's brilliant, but it really is. It really truly is brilliant.
Yeah.
There's no other way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many things I love about this movie. One of my favorites is the transition from Empty Spaces to Young Lust. Just not even just the actual transition between those two songs, but the fact that that's the order that the songs come in. It's like, oh, I'm left in this empty space. How do I fill that empty space? Young Lust. One of my favorite lines in the whole movie and the whole album really is in Happiest Days of Our Lives, when he's just like, their fat psychopathic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. It's like, what a weird line, but I can't get it out of my head. I think it's really, really funny.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the transition between Empty Spaces and Young Lust, because that was also my favorite part of the movie. With just the flowers, the sex flowers just eating each other.
Yeah, the sex flowers eating each other. Yeah, no, it's really something. It's really, really something. And also speaking of transitions, the transition, I love this in the original album as well, but I think it really does work in the movie as well, is the transition between In the Flesh and Run Like Hell. Like, it's I don't know, just after all that screaming, which by the way, I want to say the in the flesh version in the movie, I prefer than the version on the album, just because, well, one, you get the visuals to like kind of coincide with it, but like I feel like in the album version of In the Flesh, he's just kind of like saying the things when he's like shouting, where he's like, "Are there any queers in the audience?" Like, you know, he just kind of says that in the album version, but then in the movie version, he's just like screaming it, like, "Put him up against the wall!" It's just like you really feel the disdain, the absolute malice in the performance in the movie version, and I prefer that over him just kind of like it sounds like he's just saying it to be edgy in the album, whereas like here you actually feel the like evil seeping out of that performance.
I completely understand you there. Like when listening to The Wall, I never believed that Roger Waters was a fascist when he was singing those lines in that goofy manner. But like, if you told me that Bob Geldof was an actual fascist, I'd have no reason not to believe you.
You're just like, huh, maybe. Oh god, it's yeah, I love how this movie just tackles so much in that regard. And I really didn't want to have to bring this up, but I feel like we kind of have to.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room.
Hi, Doug.
Mr. Walker himself. Hi, Doug. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, a couple of years ago, the Nostalgia Critic, a person I've brought up before on the show, he made a review of this movie that was, how you say, less than well received. It was, I remember when he first dropped that video, it was insane the amount of hate that video got. And I mean, at the time when I watched it, I'm just like, yeah, no, this is bad. But like, I did rewatch it yesterday. In fact, I watched it with a couple of friends to prepare for this because I figured, I might as well bring it up. It's much worse than I remember. Like, I remember when people were saying like, "Oh, this is easily his worst video," and it's like it might be, but like after watching it, my God, yeah, it is his worst. Like purely just because he doesn't get it, and it's just such a weird bunch of criticisms for the movie. And I'm not saying you can't criticize the movie, but like you actually have to come up with, you know, actual criticisms for the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas like when he was criticizing, it's like, what are you talking about? Like one thing that really pissed me off, and I'm sorry I'm talking a lot, but I really just
it's perfectly fine. I talk the same way about this. Yeah,
so there's that scene in his review where he's parodying the trial scene where he's just like, "Oh, how come our monsters have more personality than the creatures in the movie The Wall?" It's like, what are you talking about? Like the creatures, that's the mother, that's the wife, that's the schoolmaster.
I think like
did you not get that, Doug?
Yeah, I literally think that one of the monsters is like, these monsters are like a personification of past figures from Pink's life, and yet Doug still doesn't get it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that they're past figures. So like, yeah, these are not like real, you know, defined characters, but like they were in the movie, Doug. Did you not get that? Like, I think it's pretty obvious. It's just so strange. And the fact that he's just like, "Oh, how come we never get to relate to Pink? Like, where are the characters in this movie?" It's like, dude, the movie is the character. Like, you're watching this. That's essentially how I would describe this movie. Is like, there are no characters in the movie. The movie is the character. Every scene is devoted to a thought process within this character. Like, you know, it's forming this idea of a person. You know, the whole point of The Wall is that he's building up this wall to isolate himself because of all these reasonings, because his father died in World War II, because his mother is very overbearing, because he's not good with women, because he had a shitty childhood in school, because he has a shitty relationship with his fan base and his music, and he can't really concentrate on all that, and he's addicted to drugs, and like all these different things. They're another brick in the wall. Did you not understand? Do you not understand what that means? Another brick in the wall. You're another reason why I'm building up this wall. But it can also mean, hey, I'm just another student in this system that is oppressing me. it's multiple things. It's multiple things to extract from this movie. It's all things and no things all at the same time.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I think
I used to not be so anti that video. I was just like, oh, it's just a stupid nostalgia critic review. But it's like, no, you literally just don't understand when it's
yeah. I think
I'm getting so triggered.
I think the part that insults me the most is when Doug is doing the Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 parody, and like knowing what Roger Waters had to go through in like the British schooling at that time, and then Doug's just like, LOL, so school sucks? Grow a damn pair of balls.
Yeah, grow a damn pair of balls. And so it's so funny. But like, yeah, no, it's like, well, he can't. Like, it's not like, does Doug not understand that the American school system is different from the British school system of the 50s and 60s? Like, yeah, it was genuinely horrible, the conditions of the schooling system. Like, you're equating something that's not the same as this other thing. You're equating modern schooling to schooling from close to 60 years ago, Doug. Like, that's not the same thing. Like, it's just so weird to me that like he's equating the two things. And he also, when he starts bringing up like the fascist part, like he's like saying, he brings up like hashtags and social media. It's like, what are you doing? This has nothing to do with the wall. Like, the wall was written in the 70s, long before social media, my guy. Like, are you just pissed off at social media? Which, it's fine, we all are. Nobody likes social media, but like, do it in a different video. Don't do it in a video where you're critiquing a movie that was written in the 80s.
The saddest part is it's the logical sequel to Boldly Flee. It's the logical extension.
Oh god! You know, somebody asked me that. They're just like, "What would you rather rewatch, the Wall review or To Boldly Flee?" I would sooner watch To Boldly Flee again. Like, I remember laughing, unironically, maybe twice during To Boldly Flee. Whereas the Wall review, I'm just watching and I'm like, my god, he just doesn't understand. I would sooner watch To Boldly Flee again. Which I have seen it. It's not very good.
I've only made it like halfway through Kick-Assia.
Oh, you haven't seen the entirety of Kick-Assia? Oh, for shame. Kick-Assia is the greatest cinematic masterpiece of our time.
Yeah, I kind of like zoned out during like after they took over Kick-Assia, and there's just like a day-to-day of their lives. I just zone out. I can't make it past that.
Hey, Critic, do you get a lot of pussy with that outfit? Of course! Thank you, Mr. Critic. Oh, Kick-Assia is a banger, dude. You're missing out.
An ironic banger, though, right?
I don't know anymore.
That's fair enough. Another part of that review I don't like is he turns Bring the Boys Back Home into Bring the Runtime Down.
Yeah, a call to bring back these poor soldiers who are dying for their country. Bring the boys back home. He's like, boring. Bring the runtime down. It's like, dude, time and a place.
How tactless can you be?
Oh god, it's. So the thing is, like, I've kind of like the more I've thought about this review, I've been like, okay. I don't think he truly hates the movie, and he definitely doesn't come across as that whenever he talks about it. I think he just wanted to make a parody of it, and it's like, okay, again though, you need to parody it by, parody is extracted from truth, Doug, and like nothing you're saying feels like an actual critique. It doesn't feel like you're actually critiquing the movie. Is the thing. It's like, I don't hate the fact that he made like a parody of The Wall. It's like, you can do that. That's not really the problem here. The problem is he doesn't really critique it. He's just coming up with random things that he thinks the movie is saying, but it's not. And that was the very main disconnect, which led to it being one of his most hated videos.
He could have made this a
I will say,
oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I appreciate the fact that he left it up. Like, yes, he understands it's a gigantic failure, but
Yeah.
he didn't like quietly delete it or anything. He just left it up. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I appreciate that because it's like, all right, you're willing to understand that maybe you were in the wrong. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, and you're not like deleting it, just being like, oh, it never happened. It's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
did happen. Like, we kind of have to deal with that now. So it's like, all right, fair enough,
Yeah.
and also fair enough because then I was able to watch it again and I got to see all those dislikes. There's a lot of dislikes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do you have like the thing where you could see the dislikes, even though?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still have that on my laptop. Yeah, you can still see the dislikes because guess what? It's valuable. It's valuable to see the amount of dislikes. YouTube,
Yeah.
fucking fascist.
um. Oh my God. They're going through their Pink Floyd phase.
They're going through their Pink Floyd phase.
I will. I have to say this about the review. For all its
Please
faults,
do.
yeah, it definitely got me into Pink Floyd. I don't know if
Interesting.
I do not know if I would have done a deep dive into the discography had not that review gotten so much traction for being a giant load of ape shit.
It's interesting. So I remember finding the VHS tape that I have it on, and trying to watch it like summer of 2019. So this was like a couple months before the review came out. I remember trying to watch the movie and I'm like, I'm not really in the right headspace for this. I'll return to it someday. And then the review came out and it started gaining traction of people being like, this is the worst nostalgia critic yet. And I had to be like, worst yet? I'll be the judge of that. But I wanted to watch the movie first. So then I watched it in its entirety and I was like, yes, this is a good movie. Then I watched the review and I'm like, wow, he literally didn't get it. And then one day I remember just like listening to the album and then it just like started clicking with me more. I'm like, wow, like not only do I like this movie, I love it. And so then like I kind of became more obsessed with it. And then I just started listening to it over and over again. I started watching the movie again. I got it on DVD because I loved it that much. And so like it kind of evolved to the point that yeah, not only is The Wall like my all-time favorite album, and not only is this one of my all-time favorite movies, like it means a lot to me, this movie. And so watching the review again after I've become obsessed with the movie, it's like, oh wow, I hate this review even more now.
Yeah.
But I guess yeah, in a backwards way, yes, it did get me to listen to a lot more Pink Floyd, and now Pink Floyd is easily one of my favorite bands of all time. No question.
Yeah.
Like they're so good. I could listen to any of their songs. I hear they have bad songs. I haven't listened to them yet, but I'm sure I'll get to them eventually.
Oh yeah, several species of small furry animals in a cave together grooving with a pict is definitely a song that exists.
Yeah, it's actually funny that like The Wall is like my favorite album of theirs, but I would probably consider my favorite song of theirs like Time from Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh god, Time is so good. Yeah. And
it's so good.
Personally, mine would be Shine On You Crazy Diamond, but that's only because I'm a sucker for 9-part, 25-minute songs.
That's fair.
What? I want to see Doug make a parody of that. Just call
Shine
up
on
Rob
you Crazy
Scallon.
Diamond. I remember it. You don't have to.
Just call up Rob Scallon and Corey motherfucking Taylor and just do it with them.
Yeah, get Corey and his son Griff.
It still amazes me that Corey Taylor was in the Wall review.
Yeah, I don't think he understood. He was just like, yeah, I'll be on this stupid internet show, cool. And then he was in the worst nostalgia critic video ever.
And then he played the SpongeBob theme for everyone, and everyone was happy.
Yeah, the SpongeBob theme is funny. They played the SpongeBob theme. Isn't that funny? Gen Z, I'm playing the SpongeBob theme. I'm Doug Walker.
I don't think Roger Waters wrote the SpongeBob SquarePants song for The Wall.
No, it might have been cut in the final product, honestly.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Just like When the Tigers Broke Free, it wasn't included in the album.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. They like, because like when you listen to the original album, yeah, it's not there. And it's not as anti-war in the album. I mean, yes, it is, obviously, because
Yeah.
it does have allusions to World War II, but I feel like the movie definitely emphasizes the allusions to being anti-World War II, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, yeah, because they cut out "Hey You" and they replaced it with what's the name of the song?
What shall we do now? It comes like right in between Empty Spaces and Young Lust.
Yeah, it's the Tiger song you were saying.
Oh yeah, when the tigers broke free is like earlier in the film.
Yeah, exactly. I would have loved to have heard "Hey You" in the movie, but it's fine.
It was
It's not there.
It was actually cut. I remember like I have the DVD of The Wall, and it's like one of the bonus features is like watch the original version of Hey You that was cut from
Okay.
this movie because I think it was because they were using like too much repeated like video,
Yeah.
which honestly fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think the point of "Hey You" gets across in other songs anyway, so it's like, all right, I get it. I get why
Yeah.
they cut it out. That's fine.
Yeah. I feel like the only thing they could have cut out in the final cut of this movie is like right before Nobody Home, Pink Floyd decides to shave his entire body, including his nips. And as a person with
Yeah.
sensitive nips, that makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's not fun to look at the blood, but it does lead to a really cool imagery where you see like the sink full of shaving cream and water, and you start seeing the blood drip. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not fun to see bloody nips. It's ugh.
Yeah. Thank you for that image. Thank you for that mental image. I will say that
Thanks, Roger.
it also leads into one of the best shots in the movie where Pink is just watching TV in the middle of a battlefield.
Yes, yeah. It's the backdrop on Letterboxd for the movie, which that's a great choice for
as it should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug Walker could easily
Is there
just
anything else you wanted to say?
Doug Walker could easily just repeat that with a green screen. I do have a few other things I want to say about The Wall first.
Yeah, go ahead.
But
Go ahead.
I think it's real funny how the manager in this movie is just played by Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, Mario himself.
Yeah. I also loved that Bob Geldof initially did not want to do this movie because he hates Pink Floyd, and then he was like venting about this with his cab driver, and his cab driver was like, "Oh, hey, you should do the movie. It's a quick paycheck. What's the harm?" And then Bob was like, "Okay, I'll do the movie, Roger." Do you know who that cab driver was?
I don't actually. What?
It was Roger Waters' brother, I believe.
Oh, wow. What are the odds?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
That's also really funny that he just hates Pink Floyd and he's just like, fine, I'll do it for the paycheck. Because
he's a dirty
really
punk.
Sells it.
Yeah.
He really sells it though. He really sells the part. Like, and he's a musician by trade, but like his acting's actually really good. Probably because he doesn't do a lot of talking. Like it's all in the facial expressions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really works. He really works.
I think actually one of the scariest scenes in the movie is when he suddenly just has a meltdown and destroys his hotel room in front of a groupie.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, Pink Floyd The Wall, 9 out of 10, because the nipple shaving makes me uncomfortable. But you know what they say, true art is supposed to make you uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah, so before we wrap up, I just want to mention the physical media I own this movie on, because I do own it. Yes, on DVD. Yes, on VHS. And I also do have The Wall on the actual album on CD. And I'm keeping all three just because this movie means a lot to me. I love the different versions I have it on. Even VHS. I think the VHS quality really adds to it. The DVD, it's nice to have a nicer quality of it. It's not on Blu-ray in North America. Like the only Blu-rays are like in Europe of this movie, and that's kind of upsetting because this movie deserves like a 4K or a Criterion, like something much nicer, like a step above normal DVD. This movie definitely deserves, but I don't know. They just haven't made one yet.
Yeah. Also,
which sucks.
Yeah, one more shout out to Gerald Scarfe and his animation. He did a really good job. It doesn't look like Vegas, contrary to what other people might say.
SMH does not look like Vegas. But did you say you own this on DVD too?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you keeping it?
Hell yeah. I would rather
nice.
I would rather watch all 3 hours of To Boldly Flee before I give up Pink Floyd The Wall on DVD.
Hey, that's good. I would rather watch Kikassia for the rest of my life. I'm telling you, get on the Kikassia train.
You have 2 DVDs, but you can only watch one.
Exactly.
And if you watch the other one, Doug Walker and Corey Taylor will show up at your door
and beat the shit out of me.
Let's do a nice little transition. Doug Walker did a so-called review of The Wall. But Doug Walker also does editorials from time to time where he actually delves into certain aspects of movies or just like top 11 lists that aren't like an actual review. It's just him giving out his actual thought as a critic, which actually, in retrospect, I actually like these editorials a lot.
Me too.
One of them he did in 2016. He did this like right around the same time I started getting into the Nostalgia Critic. He was discussing the historical accuracy of a little film called Amadeus.
Amadeus, our second movie we're talking about today. Yes, yeah. It's funny that you say that that you watched the Doug Walker editorial on it because that's the video that also inspired me to finally watch Amadeus. And I watched it like years and years and years ago, like around the time that video would have come out, maybe within a year after that video came out. I watched Amadeus for the first time, and I'm like, wow. And then I watched it again when I got Letterboxd. I was like, wow. And then I just watched it a third time for this podcast, and I'm like, holy moly, this is really fucking good. Like, it is. It's one of those movies I was kind of giving 5 stars at first just because I'm like, oh, it's really good because everyone else says it's really good. But this time I'm confident. This is wow. Like, what a picture, man. I love Amadeus.
Yeah.
And it is funny that, like, you know, we were shit talking Doug in his review of The Wall, but like, honestly, to give the dude credit, like, he did a great job in that editorial. I didn't rewatch that editorial to prepare for this. I should have, though, because I feel like he does bring up some really good points in that video in defending this movie. Because apparently there were people who were like complaining about what this movie does. It's like, what is there to complain about? Again, like historical inaccuracies? Oh no, like it's a movie.
The film is not only told from the perspective of Mozart's friend / rival Antonio Salieri. It's told through like his warped mind. He was going through mental degrade. This is how he remembers it.
Exactly. Oh god, yeah. So to bring up Salieri. Wow, dude, like F. Murray Abraham knocks it out of the park. Like, yes, the movie's called Amadeus. Yes, it's about Mozart, but it is secretly more so about Salieri betraying Mozart.
Antonio Salieri's story.
Exactly, it's Salieri's story. And good lord, he's so good. Like, I gotta say, Salieri in this movie is one of my all-time favorite characters in any movie ever. Like, and it's a lot of it is due to F. Murray Abraham's performance. Like, he's so good at portraying this like kind of scuzzy dude when you get down to it. Like, he's kind of a piece of shit, but like you're fascinated by him being a piece of shit because so here's the thing. He's obviously very passionate about music. And you really feel that passion for music that he does. And you know, it's not just from the way that he describes it. It's from the way, like, you see, like, certain scenes of him, like, composing, and he's just so into it. He just loves music. He sees it as, like, such a divine gift from God. And just seeing his seeing how he how like he views the world, how he views music, of like seeing how such a miracle like music is, and like what a miracle Mozart's gift is, but not just a miracle, it's a curse to him.
Yeah.
You know, it's a miracle for Mozart, but it's a curse to him, because it's like, why aren't I that good? Like, this is God torturing me.
Yeah. I just want to bring
which is really fascinating.
Yeah, I want to bring up like that. Salieri, believes that his achievements in composition are a gift from God, as you said. But like, not only that, he has been chosen by God to be like the greatest composer ever. And he figured this out when his father choked on something and died, which honestly I thought was one of the funniest scenes in the movie.
Isn't that fascinating? Like, that scene really got to me, because it's just like, okay, so he's like, he views his father dying as a miracle for him. He's just like, yeah, my father died, I got all these opportunities to become a musician. It's like, holy shit, like, what a psychopath. Like, your father dies and you're just like, holy shit, like, this is the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It's like, what? Like, it's fascinating. I love that. I love that this character is so batshit, even from like when he was a child. Like, he's like, you think he's mentally gone when he's like an old man describing all of this. Like, the fact that he saw that as like a miracle, holy shit, like that's so fascinating to me.
Yeah,
that, like, this character is just he's so passionate about what he wants out of life and what he views as important. And I feel like that's really important to a character. Like, when you're writing a character, whether or not you relate to that character is really not the important part. What you need to understand is understanding the character. So like, even when you can't relate to that, because I can't relate to Salieri being this obsessive guy who views death as like, you know, a stepping stone in his importance in life. You know, you at least need to understand. And the fact that he's so passionate for music, it's like, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
It's just really, really, really cool.
Not every movie has to have like a main character that you find relatable. Like, you gotta be crazy to relate to Salieri. You gotta be fascist to relate to Pink Floyd.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I love how like, I love how still respected Salieri is, because, you know, I feel like in any other movie, he's like jealous towards Mozart. So you'd think like, okay, then that means he kind of sucks, but he doesn't, because like, he is respected by the emperor and by his peers in Vienna. Like, he has status, he has credit, he has stuff to him. So like, if anything, the only reason he feels jealous towards Mozart is because he understands Mozart on another level over anybody else. Like, you know, one of my favorite scenes is like the opening when like he's in the loony bin and he meets the priest for the first time, and he's just like, do you know who I am? And like, he starts like playing all these melodies that he wrote, and the priest is just like, I don't know what these are.
And then he plays Ein klein Nachtmusik, and he's like, oh yeah, you made that? No, I did not.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Like, that's such a brilliant way of showing that, like, it's a brilliant way of showing like why he's jealous of Mozart. And because like, back in the day, he was also jealous of Mozart, but like, you never got the sense that like other people were either. They were just like, oh, you know, he was obsessed with Mozart, but also was jealous of him because he understood that what Mozart was doing was brilliant.
And he couldn't understand why God would give the gift of music to such a perverted man-child.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just so fascinating that like, he understands Mozart on another level over everybody else. And so then years go by, and now he's an old man, and he's like, he's been proven right that his jealousy has been proven right as to why he was jealous. Cause he's like, nobody knows who I am, but they know who Mozart is. It's like, that's such a great, study of that. I don't even know how to explain it, but like, it's just so fascinating to me that they wrote it that way. You know, they didn't just write him as like this jealous type. They actually wrote him as a very talented guy he knows he's not the best. And I think that's a really fascinating angle to take this character at.
He knows he's not the best, but he wants to be the best because he believes he's been chosen by God. And when he finds out that that Mozart strolls along, he realizes, what have you done to me? Why have you forsaken me like this, God?
Oh God, just seeing him be so spiteful towards God, it's really, really fascinating to watch how you're just, because like it's probably just, objectively speaking, it's probably just this crazy man just like going insane, but like you really feel like there's he like really delivers it in a way where it genuinely seems like there's a rivalry going on between him and God, which is like it's such a big, monumentally, like it's hard for me to describe, but you get what I'm saying. Like it has some weight to it. It probably doesn't, looking at it from an objective standpoint, but like the way that F. Murray Abraham delivers these lines as like an old man and as his current day self, it's like it really convinces you that there is some sort of rivalry between him and God. It's like, what a fascinating thing to achieve in filmmaking, really. Like, how do they do that?
Yeah. F. Murray Abraham is like the best part of this movie, and this movie also has Tom Hulce as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Yeah, he's so good. And yeah, Tom Hulce is really good as Mozart as well. Like, it's not as good as F. Murray Abraham, but I feel like the performance is still really, really good because yes, he is like this perverted man-child. He is this like super goofy looking guy, but like he also is talented. Like, you never really get they always portray him as, yes, this like goofy guy, but like he's also extremely talented because yes, he was trained as like a child, like from ever since he was a child, his life has just been music. And so yeah, of course he's going to be really wicked talented.
I think my favorite scene in the entire movie is when Mozart is being greeted by Salieri and the Emperor and his associates, and then Mozart decides to play like Salieri's welcome march, and he just turns to Salieri like, the rest of this is just the same, isn't it? And then just proceeds to improvise off the entire thing.
It's so good. He's just one-upping him without even realizing it, and Salieri takes that to heart. Like, it's brilliant. It's so brilliant. Just I love that scene too, because like they're just like, oh, we want to commission you to make an opera, and they're just like, did we ever decide on the language it should be in? And the two Italian characters are just like, oh yes, we decided on Italian. And I love how the Chamberlain's just like, did we? Like the way he says did we is just so funny to me.
And then like the Austrian guy is like, well, what? How about we do it in German? I mean, I'm German. Yeah. We're in a German country. It's fascinating, like the infighting between countries in this movie. Just because, certain characters are patriotic for their homelands. Of course, there's going to be a lot of infighting with that, and I think that's fascinating that this movie shows that. Yeah. I also love how the Emperor is played by the principal from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, isn't that random?
Yeah, well, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. I love that line. I love his too many notes scene. Just how he's just like, yeah, it's too many notes. Just cut a few and it'll be perfect. It's like,
can you tell me
what does that mean?
Can you tell me specifically what few I need to cut out?
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's such a brilliant way of showing like such a weird criticism to bring up. It's like, yeah, there's too many notes, and he's just like, but there aren't any. Like, I used just enough notes because this is Mozart's work. Like, this is his art. So like the way he made it is the way he wanted it to be made. Like, saying there's too many notes is arbitrary. It's like, what do you mean there's too many notes? Like, what does that mean? It's fascinating that we're bringing this up because just earlier we were talking about a very bad review, and it's just like, what are you even saying? Like, what is this critique? Too many notes? What do you mean the creatures didn't have characters, Doug? But like, but like I feel like that can apply to anything. It's like, what does that mean? Too many notes. It's such a good scene, such a good line. Too many notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wanted to bring up some more of my favorite silly Mozart scenes, like the scene where like his mother-in-law is just shouting at him. He takes it as inspiration for the famous Queen of the Night aria from Magic Flute.
Oh yeah, it's so good, so good. How he's just like, yeah, that's a great scene. How he's like taking influence. I also love the transition from after he finds out about his father dying, and it transitions to Don Giovanni, and how he's just like, this was his blackest opera yet. It's just like, oh, brilliant! Like, life imitates art, art imitates life. That's a great transition between that.
Yeah. I feel like I do want to bring up another elephant in the room. Salieri did not commission Mozart to write the Requiem. It was a guy named Franz von Walsing. I have no idea what he did, but I'm guessing it was something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things. Again, like, yeah, this movie's not very historically accurate, but it's just like, okay,
like,
I don't know if I necessarily wanted it to be historically accurate, you know? It's like you said at the beginning. It's like, yeah, this is from the perspective of a mentally deteriorating Salieri. Like, you're not going to get things 100% correct, and that's the point.
Yeah.
This isn't like Bohemian Rhapsody or Elvis, like other musical biopics where it's claiming to be 100% accurate, but then it's not.
Yeah,
you know?
this film is actually well edited.
That too. It's actually well edited, but like, yeah, I don't think the movie ever claims to be 100% accurate historically. So that way I can forgive the inaccuracies and the like, you know, the fact that it's not 100% true. I'm okay with that. You know, it reads more as like an actual story than like a biopic. Like, that's why I prefer this over, like, you know, the majority of musical biopics out there, because like it's actually telling a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that, like, when Margaret Thatcher saw the stage version of this, because this is like adapted from a play, she like wrote an angry letter to them for saying that Mozart, this writer of dignified music, could not have been such a weird party animal. And then they like sent her like actual letters that Mozart sent and like anecdotes of what he did, but she still was like, "Nuh-uh, this isn't my Mozart."
Oh, for crying out loud! It's
Maggie Thatcher sucks.
How could you be so stupid?
Yeah.
I will not eat one morsel of food until Margaret Thatcher is dead and buried.
I have news for you, buddy.
It's one of my favorite Norm Macdonald jokes. Yeah. Also, I dug up a memory while rewatching Amadeus. I feel like I watched this, or I didn't watch the whole thing, obviously, but like I watched a clip of it in like music class in elementary school, like years ago. It's like, so there's that scene when Mozart is like on the little piano thing, and like that's when he like faints and he's like really, 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 really sick. And they have like the characters in like the bird costumes, like that scene. They showed, I can't remember if it was like third or fourth grade, but it was definitely elementary school. And we were in music class, and my teacher showed us that scene. And we got up to like the part where like they bring Mozart to like a carriage, because it's like after that we really didn't need to see anymore. I think they were showing us like the bird costume people. And I also remember, I feel like there were kids laughing during that scene. I can't remember why. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it's because some kids noticed like the little kid actors in like the angel costumes, and they're like, why are they naked? It's just like, oh, well, that's probably just why they were dressed like that back in the day.
Yeah,
I may be misremembering, but I feel like that's a memory, like a very vague memory I have from like that time, which is really funny that like I saw that scene like as a child, and then I'm like, oh, that was weird. It's a weird movie, and then like I watch it years later, I'm like, wow, I'm watching this movie for real now, and it's great. It's one of the greatest movies ever made, actually.
Yeah. I remember seeing a clip of this movie in either 7th grade or 8th grade. We were like in the cafeteria doing something for like band class, and we watched the scene where Mozart was just playing a theme in the style of many other composers. And like Salieri's like, play Salieri. And then and then Mozart just plays it like really rigid and grumpy. And then at the end he farts.
Yeah. That's a great scene. I was just like, play Salieri. And it's great because you get a lot of Tom Hulce tomfoolery, but then you also like it also continues the story of Salieri just growing more and more bitter towards this character. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant scene.
And it's not as if Mozart doesn't have any more respect towards Salieri. In truth, the two were actually very good friends, and Salieri gave a lot of money to Mozart when he was falling on rough times. But like, it's clear that like Mozart has his own personal biases towards what he would consider to be like music of the day, and not like just music back then, music that was too inspired by like the Baroque styles.
Well, it's interesting because like, yeah, there's that scene where like the emperor and his the emperor and all those guys are like calling Mozart out. They're just like, you can't write this play, it's illegal. And he's just like, oh, why do I have to write music about like gods? Like, wouldn't you be more fascinated by hearing a musical about your hairdresser? Like, yeah, like that's a great scene on its own, but it's also a great scene to show like what kind of stuff Mozart is about, like what he's passionate about, like how different that is compared to what came before him, and why we consider Mozart like such a hugely influential historical figure. Because yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, gods and legends, it's like, yeah, that's all really interesting, but like, what about the common folk? Like, that's why I love the difference between the scenes of him performing the operas in the opera house with the emperor and such, and then like there's the common theater place where like people are a lot more rowdy, but it's like a lot more common to the common folk. I love how like the operas are performed in Italian and German and all these different languages, but then you get to like the common theater and they're performed in English. It's like, that's a great, those are great indicators of like the separation between the classes. Like it's brilliant.
Yeah, I never knew that there was a giant English speaking community in Vienna. Thank you, Amadeus.
Yeah, Vienna. Yeah, thank you, Amadeus. Why is everybody speaking English? Suspicious.
And since we're bringing up Doug Walker, I also did want to bring up his Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle review, where his entire character arc is just impersonating Salieri because he actually liked the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie when everyone else didn't.
It's unfortunate that like every time I watch this movie now and I see the scenes of Salieri as an old man, like in the back of my head at this point, I'm just like, reminds me of that Doug Walker review.
Yeah.
But like, it's unfortunate, but like also at the same time, it's like, I still feel like this movie, the performance is still so good that like I can still separate the two. But I did watch the review before I saw Amadeus.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching the review, I'm like, this is a reference to something. And then I actually watched Amadeus and I'm just like, oh, that's what that review is parodying.
Doug already did the analysis on Amadeus. If he does a full on like parody, I'm gonna lose it.
Oh, hopefully not.
Yeah. He's learned his lesson, hopefully.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, but yeah,
tomorrow he just released his Amadeus parody. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah. Well, I watched this movie on digital, like on like YouTube. I paid money, sadly, but I think I'm definitely gonna find a copy of this.
So I own the director's cut on DVD. That's how I watched this. So it was like, there's 20 minutes of never before seen footage. I mean, the theatrical cut I would imagine is very long anyway, but like I guess this is also long. It's 180 minutes.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just saying, the runtime is really the price of admission for someone like the Amadeus is long enough anyway. Like it depends on who you're talking about. Like a simple folk from Indiana, or like a political figure, or like a college kid in Colorado who has no time for his own.
Yeah, it's
I would say that
some
I would
poor
I would say the 3 hours is worth it though.
yeah, I'm sure some poor schmuck is just like, oh, there's too many scenes. Cut a few and it'll be perfect. It's like, no, this needs to be 3 hours long. Like every scene is valid. Every scene is vital to the movie. It's like I love that this is 3 hours long. It's quite the experience for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did it justice describing it in this episode, but I figured every time I do an episode on one of these movies that are just like so good, it's like I can only say so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you get the gist. It's like this movie's brilliant. I love it. I love this director's cut DVD. I think it's really neat. Could I own it on like a nicer 4K? I don't know if that exists. Quite frankly, that doesn't matter to me. I think it looks great on the DVD that I have it on. I love the director's cut. So I'm keeping this DVD. It's a definite keep for the collection. So it's staying. I love this movie. If none of you out there have ever seen Amadeus, fucking watch it. It's so good.
I do have a few things before we sign off here.
Sure.
I think one of the best parts, like one of the saddest parts about this movie is like the Mozart's death, like because it takes a long time, and you're like watching like this wonderful man who's like such a figure at parties just turn into this lifeless husk who's just buried in a mass grave like some other poor schmuck back then. It's like it kind of tears me up, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Also, another one of the best scenes is like when like Salieri's talking with Mozart's like girlfriend or wife Constance, I believe, and then like she has Salieri hide, and then like her husband comes in and he asks her to propose with him, and he's like being such a weird pervert guy, and then he's like, they're playing my music without me, and then he just goes into full on work mode, and and then Salieri just examines the score after that and just is awestruck at what he saw as like perfect divine music being composed by this weird man-child guy. I just love that.
Yeah, this buffoon. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. There is not a scene in this movie of Mozart or Salieri shaving their nipples, so I think I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10.
You know what? Fair enough. It's a good way of judging movies. Yeah. Does this movie have a bloody nipple scene? Yes? No? Okay then.
Yeah. Just bring that up every once in a while if you can.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, and how can we mention Amadeus without mentioning that laugh?
Oh, such a good laugh. Such a intentionally annoying laugh, but like it grows on you. It's pretty funny. You can't help but smile every time he does that goofy laugh.
Yeah.
For
also,
sure.
Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, better autism representation than Sean Murphy. He's definitely a contender.
Better autism representation than the Predator, that's for sure. Because that's like lowest of the low, but still.
There's autism representation in Predator?
No. Well, yes, but I'm saying no because nobody wants to bring up the Predator because the Predator sucks. It's one of the worst fucking movies ever, and one of the worst portrayals of autism ever too. It's really bad. Don't watch.
Yeah, someone with autism, I will not watch unless I want to hurt myself.
Probably for the best. Yeah, definitely for the best. No one should have to watch the Predator. It's a terrible movie.
Watch the Amadeus or The Wall.
Yeah. Amadeus or The Wall. Pick both. Watch both. They're fucking phenomenal movies for sure. I'm glad you recommended both. These are really good to watch again.
I'm glad I recommended them too. Because I've only seen like clips of Amadeus online, and like watching the full thing was like it was truly an experience. I love this fucking movie.
All right then, Andrew, shout out your stuff. Where can people find you?
Oh, my YouTube account is just Standrew. Maybe if you cross your fingers and your toes, I will upload a video. I'm on Twitter as Standrew730. That 730 being July 30th, my birthday. And I dedicate most of my time on there talking about a specific ship from Amphibia, about two frogs that only have 5 seconds of interaction for each other. But you know what? I don't care because they make me happy. And then there's my own podcast, Rock of Ages, about it used to be primarily about introducing rock albums to theater kids and vice versa. But we've been running a bit low on people lately, so I think I'm gonna slowly transition it to just showing my friends my favorite rock albums, and then we do cast recording whenever we do a concept album or a rock opera. Like The Wall, which we already did a couple years ago, so yeah. But yeah, definitely check that out. It's on Spotify if you have that stuff. And if you are interested, if you're a theater kid or just someone who's interested in rock and roll or musical theater, I highly recommend that maybe you listen to the podcast and maybe even join, because we could use some more members.
Yeah. All these links will be in the description below for sure. Well, thank you, Andrew, for coming on.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully editing this will be easy. But you never know.
Yeah. Let's see how long we've been going for. An hour and 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. So, yeah, well, anyway, thanks for coming on. And thank you, the listener, for listening to the podcast. If you want to support the show, give a like, give a comment, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or just on YouTube. That's fine, too. And yeah, thanks for watching. And always remember, we don't need no education. We don't need no thought control, no dark sarcasm in the classroom. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, those fat psychotic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. All right,
I understood that reference. Bye-bye.